Hey there, I'm Lee Rowley, and this is Lee After Dark. Why? Because there's more to being a business leader than just business. Each episode, one brave entrepreneur ejects the elevator pitch and just gets real. Today, I'd like to welcome Luke Kendall. Luke, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Lee. Pleased to join you.
Well, same here, and thank you for spending some time with us today. Luke, the rules are simple. For the next 20 minutes, we can talk about anything you want except for your business. And at the end, you'll have 5 minutes to pitch up a storm. So then you can tell us how to find more about you, any offers you have available, or anything like that. So 1 minute of pitch time deducted for each time you talk about your business during the interview. And I'm pretty loose with the rules, so we don't worry too much about it. Sound good?
That sounds good.
Great. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start the timer for you. And so you sent over some information here, but is there a particular place that you feel like you'd just like to start today?
No, I was having a look through some of your guests that you've interviewed. They're all interesting, very interesting people. I hope I can do your channel justice. But I see that you actually talk about like a hugely wide-ranging set of topics, anything and everything. So anything's fine. Like you talk about happiness, cooperation versus competition, the difference in the culture between Japan, Australia, and the United States, and the similarities, creativity, the importance of story to the human race, anything at all.
Absolutely. Well, it's really, you've got a unique story, and that is what I'm most interested in, and what my audience is most interested in is we really just like to get to know the people behind the businesses. So one thing that you mentioned is that you were married with a 22-year age difference, and that's something that is a unique experience that most of us haven't encountered. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I met the woman who's going to become my wife when I was 24, and yeah, she was a wonderful person, quite unique. Her name's Stella, and she invited me over to her place to talk about. I was running a D&D campaign, and we were talking about coming up with ideas for adventures and stories and creating adventures for people. And she was doing her PhD in English, and she was relating the idea of adventures and stories that you would play out with your friends to the idea of the fairy tale. And so I came over to her place to talk to her about property and analysis and the folklore of the anatomy of the folklore and the fairy tale, and how it might relate to coming up with adventures for playing D&D games. And we just like got on like a house on fire. So we spent all afternoon chatting and into the late evening. And yeah, we basically did just two very compatible souls, and it all went from there. So I think we got married about 6 months later. And because there's a big age difference, a lot of our friends are saying this can't work, it won't work. And but we'd come to know each other so deeply and so well that we were pretty sure it would. So yeah, we got married, and we were very, very happily married for almost 30 years before she died of a combination of cancer and sort of dementia.
Oh, sorry. So sorry to hear that. That's a long journey, and it's something that really shapes who you are. So if you can feel free to talk about that. I mean, you mentioned in some of the information that that you'd lost your wife, and as you may know, I've lost a daughter, so I tend to attract a lot of people here who have gone through traumatic experiences. So what tell us a little bit about that, since you brought it up. If you're comfortable with it, or we can move on to another topic too.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's almost 5 years ago now. It's 5 years ago in about 20 days' time. No, 11 days' time. But it was, it certainly upended me in that, straight after and for a long time after. But I'm a basically happy person, and I have great friends and great family. And after a bit of time to myself, I sort of made the effort to, stay connected to people, and people are very helpful and supportive. So I, I guess I just would work through it, and I've always tried to look at the bright side of things, I suppose, and tried to look for the good in every situation and look for the silver lining, I suppose. Um, and and I don't regret a day that I was married to her or having met her, and also I kind of looked at it as like, a gift of 30 years of that time together. So
Mm-hmm.
it was just a wonderful thing, and I learned so much and grew so much from that, and had lots of wonderful experiences. So I was well aware that it's because of happiness, really, and like I'm never going to get her back, and I'm never going to sort of see her again, but I can still enjoy life and enjoy people and move on, I suppose. So I'm basically a happy person, and I suppose that's one of the things that really helped me get through it, strangely enough, was being retrenched about 3 months, 4 months later, with a bunch of other people from the company at the time. And the woman who put us in contact, Karen Tisdale, she was like a career counsellor, and I was going through the usual, I'd like updating my resume and all that sort of stuff, and we were talking through what the next step, where I'd go next, that sort of thing. And she sort of looked at me and she said, you don't seem really excited by the prospect of like continuing your career in IT. And I said, well, no, not really. She said, so what would you really like to do? And I said, well, I'd love to write. And she said, well, why didn't you give it a try? And I'd had this manuscript I've been working on for ages, but I'd consciously decided, okay, I'm going to have a go at writing this book and finishing it off and actually publishing it, trying to get it published. And so I devoted like 100% of my time to that. So it gave me something really to focus on in that critical first year, I suppose, while I was, coping with everything changing.
Sure.
And that was like what I was living for. So
it really is about coping, especially during that first year, and I can definitely relate to that experience. Unfortunately, I chose a slightly less productive path. I went straight into the bottle of Jim Beam and didn't come out for about a year. But it sounded like you were. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that's very understandable.
But sure, but you being retrenched, I mean, that's that did give you something to focus on, and that's what I learned after going through a year of focusing on nothing but myself and how I felt. That it was moving my focus externally that helped me to actually start growing and healing.
Yeah. I suppose the one of the biggest life-changing moments for me was because growing up, I'd always sort of idolized Mr. Spock from the old Star Trek series.
Oh, yeah.
That brilliant mind, that logical, the unemotional thing. I sort of thought, well, emotions are bad. And it was during I'd actually sort of tagged along with my wife through some counselling, like cognitive behavioural therapy type counselling. And I sort of joined the sessions to sort of act as a translator between her and the counsellor, because from what she was telling me about some of the earlier sessions, they weren't really communicating well. They weren't sort of, I could see that like she'd said this and he took it this way, but she actually meant it that way. So I convinced them both that I could sort of sit in and like help translate, and that was going quite well. But I discovered while just listening to what they're talking about that I was getting more from the counselling sessions than my wife was. And And that ended up with me sort of having the epiphany that like emotions are super, super important to, perhaps more important than logic, to being a human being, like being a good human being. So it's like, holy crap, I've been living my life the wrong way. Like Mr. Spock is not, it's not like the be all and end all. You've got to have like a healthy balance between the two, and especially
Sure.
on the emotional side. So it made me a much better person when I sort of realized that.
So being a little less Spock, right? That's an
Yeah,
interesting thing. Yeah, and I can definitely see that, because it seems, on the surface, like being completely logical and not emotional would make life easier because you'd be making decisions, based on uh, facts and data rather than how you feel. But it doesn't work out that way in real life. So I'm
yeah. Or
thrilled
if
that
it
you
does,
shared that
it's
experience.
I don't think it's a. I don't think that logic is a pathway to happiness.
No, what do you think is a pathway to
But
happiness, or is there one?
I think like partly I've got it by the science. So there's still the Spock logical side of it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the evidence sort of shows that helping other people tends to make us happy, makes us feel good. Um, so I think that's maybe the most important element, like helping other people. But I think
Absolutely.
a lot of it is your attitude too. I think if you can genuinely find something good in the moment and something worthwhile, something to appreciate, and focus on that, then everything just seems to work out better. Um, you can sort of tear yourself down. Your own mind can be your own worst enemy, and likewise, it can be your best friend.
Right.
So if it's like encouraging you, if that inner voice is encouraging you, rather than sort of tearing you down with negative thoughts, things become a lot easier. And if you can help other people sort of feel the same way and cheer them up and make them happier, and do things to help them, everyone benefits.
Exactly. That's very important. Let's bring into some of the other things that you would mention. You had talked about the challenges of earning a living as an author. And as a fellow author, let's segue away to just really nice abrupt segue there. Tell me about that, because we've got a lot of writers that listen to us too, and I'm sure a lot of them can relate.
Yeah. My idea at the start was, like the dream was to go the traditional publishing route,
Okay.
find a publisher, and write a great book if you could, and get all that. And eventually, I gave up on that. After long silences and nothing much happening. But at the time that I was talking to Karen Tisdall, I'd noticed that the publishing ecosystem had changed. So self-publishing, especially with Amazon, was like quite a valid and reasonable thing to do. So I started doing that. And after I produced the book and the second book, things were going reasonably well. I was earning like little bits of regular amounts of money each month from Amazon. And then their algorithms changed, and it basically just fell off a cliff. So it was like almost nothing. I think that was around about the time that Amazon decided that they wouldn't sort of promote the books to people unless the authors paid for ads. So Amazon makes some money off the ads and off the books. So,
Right.
Yeah. So there was a big survey done by Macquarie University in Australia of lots and lots of authors in Australia, and the average yearly income for an author, I think, was 13,500 Australian, which is probably about 10,000 US, 8,000 US. So basically, apart from like the top 1%, most authors are being supported by a partner, or they've got a day job, and the writing is kind of on the side. So
yeah, sure.
So I see people that are really great marketers and really understand how to sort of market themselves as writers and market courses about writing and help other authors do it. And there's kind of an infrastructure building up around that. And some writers are making money doing that. You get paid gigs doing, writing smaller pieces of magazine articles or pieces for newspapers. But for me, I want to write books, and I'm quite happy to do it self-publishing And at the moment, I wouldn't say I'm earning a living doing it. I'm living off my savings and my superannuation and that sort of thing. And I'm hoping that if I write enough books that are good enough, and some people notice them and like them, then gradually, sort of organically, that I'll get a following, and maybe get to a point where I could earn a living off the writing. But I suppose I tried to set my goal reasonably low. I thought, I consider myself a successful author if there are more hours of enjoyment from reading my book from readers than I had spent writing the books.
That's an interesting way
So
of looking at it. Yeah.
so
Okay.
I put in about 3,000 hours of work for each book, I suppose.
Wow.
So and if you guess maybe it takes 8 hours or 10 hours to read it, then okay. If I get 300 or 400 people reading each book, then okay, I've the human race is ahead. The amount of effort, the joy from the amount of effort is kind of positive. So it's a net positive.
That's funny. That I love how you're looking at the return on investment as being what the readers get out of it rather than what you get out of it. And what a fascinating way to look at it. I mean, that's something. It's absolutely so simple and fundamental, but yet most people, especially in today's online marketing world, would just be, wow. It would be like the revelation of the century. And it's just basic
Or
common sense, right? That's awesome.
yeah, or they're thinking, or they're thinking that guy is not a businessman; he's an idiot.
Well, you know what? They're welcome. The way I see it, they're welcome to think that because your measure of success, your definition of success, isn't theirs, and nor is theirs yours, right? So, however you want to
Yeah,
measure success, which is to you the amount of enjoyment people get out of it. If you're doing good work, then the money will come. So
yeah,
saith me
and I think
anyway.
yeah, and I think unlike the traditional publishing model, where for the mid-list authors, you'll get 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of marketing and big sort of push to sort of sell the book.
Hmm.
If you do it yourself, you can just spend whatever spare time you've got and just keep trying. So the books are sort of still there, waiting to be discovered by readers who might enjoy them. So you can keep trying, whereas that's kind of out of your control if you go the traditional route. So
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I would personally much rather a friend on LinkedIn would say, what, hey, Luke's got this book, and I really think you would enjoy. You might go and checking it out. It would take me about 10 seconds to go over to Amazon, click the one-click sell and be like, sure. It might take me a month to read it, but I mean that sort of personal touch is what would make me go buy a book sight unseen. And so of Karen, which again she introduced us, and I really appreciate her for doing that. She's a wonderful person. I've only known her on LinkedIn a short time, but if
she
she's
is, she
if
really
she
is, yeah,
says if she messages me and says, what, hey, Luke's got a book, go buy it, I'm there. And I think that's where you're going to find your success, really, in the in
I,
today's.
I'd, I'd caution you. It's certainly not a book for all. My books are not books for everyone. I've had I've had some people read them and said, "This person is a monster." Like this book should not have been written,
Oh, well, okay.
because at the heart of it, there's an abusive relationship, and the readers thought, I don't know, I was enjoying the abuse or something, not sort of saying this is a bad thing. They're sort of thinking, oh, how could you write this? And I think some readers didn't know what to expect, and so I went and actually changed the book description and sort of put this warning up, because I realised I was probably people reading the book not aware of what lay ahead, and so they probably felt, why did you put me through that emotional mill? I didn't want that, which is fair enough. So yeah,
But that's okay. Those people make noise too. And the more noise they make, the more people check you out and the more people buy your book. There you go. That's fascinating. In fact, I gotta check it out now. So you gotta send me some links after this is over because I'm intrigued now. If it's gonna have that visceral of a reaction, I definitely want to check it out. And that being I think a good segue, or at least I hope, we've completed the 20-minute Lee After Dark challenge. So being a man of my word, I want to give you 5 minutes to talk about your book, your business, how people can contact you, whatever you want to say.
Okay. Well, this year I've actually set up a proper website. Like authors are supposed to have a website, so I've got some sort of. It's not too bad.
Okay.
So you can search for me as LJ Kendall, which is my author name.
Okay.
And I'm sort of widely available on different book channels and stores and Amazon and whatever.
Wonderful.
You can search for my website, which is a toe in the ocean of books, where I just sort of blog about the writing or the self-publishing. It started out, I was just sharing what I was learning about the self-publishing, probably in too much detail, but I was partly doing it for myself, partly to help myself learn, and partly just to record what I had learned as I went along. The books themselves, it's going to be a longer series, probably 10 books. I think I'll probably need 10 books to tell the story. There's science fiction, fantasy, there's cross-genre stuff that's set in our world in about 20, 30 years from now. About a decade or so after magic has just started working again, which it occurred to me that with mobile phones and our great medical technology and all the rest of it, and the SpaceX and all the rest of it, we don't need magic now. Really, the technology we've got is kind of like magical. You can talk to someone across the world and see them across the world. It's pretty magical. Anyway, so magic sort of comes in and as much screws things up as helps. And it's the story of this slightly unusual young girl who's adopted by this unethical researcher who wants to test his theory about how to make magic unfold in someone. And so it follows her story and his story as she ends up becoming a naive and innocent assassin.
Wow.
And of course, so that's the sort of moral dilemma, or the darkness, that and the abusive relationship, which is a lot too much for many people to cope with. Fair enough, but it means that you've got a really rich story and personality to sort of follow. Like, how do you go from that to being like a good person? So she thinks of herself as a good person. It's just that there's a lot of challenge and a lot of depth to the relationships, and there's a lot to explore. And I've got these big background plots running, and some of those are going to take several books to get to, and I try to resolve one sort of big plot in each book.
Well, I, for one, can't wait to dive into the inner workings of your mind and check these books out. So we will definitely have we'll have all the links in the show notes when this episode comes out, so that people will be able to connect with you and go check out your books and your series as well. So any parting words before we wrap this up today?
No, just thank you very much for interviewing me, and I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving in there in the US.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'll say goodbye from
right.
Sydney, Australia.
Very cool. It's very nice to talk to you today. Thank you very much for sharing a little bit about your personal story and about your journey as an author. We've loved having you on the show. We are out of time.
It's so good to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. If you found Lee After Dark more entertaining and relevant than most of the dreck out there, subscribe to the Lee After Dark YouTube channel and now get Lee After Dark in your pants. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Stitcher, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and who the heck knows where else. So you can enjoy us wherever you stick your phone. Until next time, this is Lee Rowley with my new friend, Luke Kendall. Be present and be well.